Hello, everybody. Good morning. I think it's the last good morning of the session. We're just about to hit midday. I am absolutely delighted to welcome you all to our next session, Taking Participation to the Next Level, a Youth Perspective. As Carmel said, my name is Sarah Haslam. I'm the Director of Training Programs and Research with Foróige, and along with my colleague Gavin Murphy, Dr. Danielle Kennan and Aisling O'Leary from the centre here, we've had the absolute pleasure to be able to support our youth panel over the last number of weeks. And what we did is we just provided them the space to put together the session that they are going to share with you here now this morning. They are all members of Foróige from across our clubs, projects and programmes. And recently they were elected by their peers to the governance of the organisation. And they're going to tell you much, much more about that. They're also part of a whole variety of initiatives, both in and out of school. So they're coming from a range of perspectives on this topic. So I really do hope you enjoy this session. Two quick housekeeping things before I hand over to them is firstly, a reminder from this morning. Please do not take any photos during the session and please do not post anything to social media. With prior permission, we are recording this session and that will be made available to you all post-conference. One of the last questions, or one of the last pieces that they are going to say to you is that they're happy to take questions after their input. And they saw your Padlet and many of you who are saying that you're eager to hear them. So they are generous enough to give their time and they will open the floor for questions and answers. And I will come back up here to support them. So please do join me in welcoming Caoimhe, Cian, Sam and Mia.
Dear Grace and hello everyone, my name is Caoimhe Mines, I'm 17 years old, I'm from Meath and I'm a founding member of Cairn Ross Foróige. I'm currently on Foróige's National Council and I've completed Foróige Leadership for Life programme, which is accredited by Galway University. I'm a member of my school's debate team and this year I won the Rotary Youth Leadership and Development Competition where I was given the opportunity to debate in the European Parliament. I was a member of the Youth Forum on Online Safety in preparation for the EU presidency, which was run by the Department of Culture, Communication and Sports and supported by the Ombudsman for Children and other organisations. I decided to get involved with this opportunity as I'm very interested in politics and decision making, and I thought it would be an amazing opportunity to learn more. I would now like to invite Cian to introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cian, Birmingham. I'm 17. I'll be 18 tomorrow, and I'm from Dublin. Thank you. Thank you. One of the main reasons why I got involved with today's panel discussion is because I'm very passionate about youth participation and, more importantly, youth voice. And I believe that youth or young people should be partners in decision making and not just being consulted. And I'm really interested in how, over the course of the next 2 days, how we move from listening to us as young people to actually sharing power with us. I've gained a lot of experience over the last couple of years being involved in youth leadership. I'm in a deaf school. I've set up some wellbeing initiatives and advocacy work. And I've experienced in tackling school stress, mental health and wellbeing, inclusion and access to youth supports. And that experience has helped me represent young people and speaking on the issues that affect us. I'm passionate about creating spaces where young people views lead to action. And I've gained a lot of that from working on Corlin and Ogue, being a member in Dunleary Rathdown. And in 2024, I'd been elected to the National Executive, where just last month I'd stepped down after Dalnogue. We worked on a national topic of school stress, which was supported by the Department of Children, and I can see some of them in the audience who I'm happy to see. When I got involved with Foróige, I was elected, as Sarah was mentioning earlier this year, to the reference panel. I progressed onto the National Council, and just 2 weeks ago I had been elected to the Board of Directors of Foróige for the forthcoming year. So I'll pass you over to Sam now.
Thanks very much, Ian. Hello, everyone. Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Sam Lynch. I am 16 years old. I'm from Kilkenny City. I attended junior and senior infants in Kilkenny, and during that time decided normal school was not for me. So since then, I've been homeschooled. This has given me a ton of opportunities and qualifications, such as being a volunteer with the Order of Malta Ambulance Corps Cadets, holding the rank of Cadet Sergeant, and being a cadet ambassador with them, representing all cadets in the south of Ireland on a national level. I'm a trained medical responder, a personal trainer, a radio presenter, and currently completing my yoga teacher training, as well as being a member of Corlin and Oak in Kilkenny City, and most recently becoming a member of the 2026 Foróige reference panel, which is why I'm here today. I'm here to give my view on a few topics that I believe are really important for young people all over Ireland. That's pretty much all about me. Thank you very much, and I will now pass back to Caoimhe.
So, thank you, Sam. And finally, Mia, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Mia Topak. I am 16 years old, Turkish Irish, and I live in Wicklow. I've been with Foróige for 4 years, and this is my first term on the reference panel. I'm really big on youth participation, so I really like to get involved in my school through things like the Green Schools Committee, Start of Practice Initiative, or being a class leader. I have a digital media literacy certification, a PowerPoint certification through G-Metrics, and have recently joined the National Participation Office's Inclusivity Youth Advisory Group. I enjoy computer science, coding, politics, particularly the rights of women and young people, volunteering in my local community, and more than anything else, I love Ardasha and Milo. I was really grateful when I got the opportunity because I believe as young people we should be spoken with rather than about. Everyday decisions are made about our education, communities and climate without our input, without the input of those who are most affected. Hence why I was so excited to receive this opportunity where so many people have come to hear our thoughts and views so we can hopefully impact your view of youth participation and why it is so important. And now I'm going to tell you a bit about Foróige and the reference panel. The name Foróige comes from the Irish words Forbut na Hóg, meaning development of youth. Founded in Kilkenny on March 14th, 1952, it was originally known as Macron Tuath, but in 1981 was renamed Foróige. Foróige is Ireland's largest youth development organisation, working with over 50,000 young people every year and operating out of 26 counties. The Foróige reference panel is made up of 64 young people across Ireland, with young people being elected by their peers in each region. We meet twice a year to help shape the organisation's policies and advocate on behalf of other young people and engage in opportunities such as this. As you have heard, we all have lots of experience with youth participation. So let's talk about what we have gained from youth participation. I'll go first. Youth participation has been such a valuable part of my life. It has given me skills in leadership, teamwork and communication that I would otherwise not have. I had the opportunity to attend the Leadership for Life conference with Foróige, where I spent 5 nights on the Maynooth College campus and made so many friends while gaining confidence from each session. This year, I walked the Junk Tour Regional Runway, attended the first ever West Wicklow Green School Summit, and won an Impact Award with the Rubbish Film Festivals. I would not have had any of these opportunities had I not been involved in these projects and given the chance to do so as a young person. Sam, what have you gained from youth participation?
Thanks very much, Mia. So, to date, I have no wish or a real need to be on social media, as it's being immersed in the real world where I find pleasure. However, for me, an important thing to know about social media and homeschooling is that whenever I feel the need, or every year, I can always have the discussion and make an argument for whatever it was, for or against. There will be a discussion and we will come to a resolve. To be fair, that was mostly on social media. For homeschooling, I got the opportunity every single May, every year, as to whether or not I wanted to continue and go to normal school. Having this choice was very empowering. It meant I had a say in my life choices and always had the option to propose anything I wanted. And it meant I got very creative at putting PowerPoints together at a very early age. This then led to me making videos, which led to me being interested in media and putting a proposal together to the radio station manager in my county at age 14 to ask for a show. My mum made it clear I wasn't getting any help off her, as if I wanted to start on air, I had to earn it of my own merit. I was free to ask for help if I was stuck on something, but it was my overall responsibility. Examples like this are how I became aware of the importance of empowering myself whilst having backup to go for what I want. Thanks, Mia.
And as you have heard, we all have a lot of thank you, Sam. Caoimhe, I believe you have some experience with the EU Parliament. Would you tell us a bit about that?
Well, in the famous words of Nelson Mandela, the youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow, which highlights the necessity of educating the youth on decision making. This year, I won the Rotary Youth Leadership and Development Competition, where I had the incredible opportunity to travel to Stormont, Europe House, and Dáil Éireann, which taught me about the different job sectors surrounding politics. My favourite part of the trip was going to Strasbourg to debate in the European Parliament about environmental legislation. We debated, amended and voted on the motions we were given, which simulated the work of MEPs. This experience gave me a clear understanding of the work that politicians and decision makers do. It made me realise this was a sector I would like to work in the future. Giving young people chances like these helps them understand the work which is carried out by these individuals. If we want a successful future, we must give young people the opportunity to learn about how decisions making is carried out on a large scale and the importance of their decisions.
That all sounds great. Cian, what have you gained from youth participation?
Thanks, Leah. I've gained an awful lot of experience through youth participation. One of the skills I've been able to build is confidence and leadership skills. I've been given opportunities that I never actually thought were possible, if it was speaking in the Dáil chambers or sitting in front of the Department of Education about the new Leaving Cert reform. And the best of all, I've been given the ability to influence decisions that are affecting us as young people. And I suppose youth participation has shown me that we as young people are capable of making meaningful contributions and decisions when we're trusted with the responsibility. And I've seen this through Young Rogue, Foróige, and the national consultations that I've taken part in, that we as young people often have valuable insights because we live in these everyday experiences. But I don't believe it's not just about having our voice heard. It's about our contribution that creates change and a meaningful impact.
Thank you, Cian. Caoimhe, over to you.
Now that we've heard about what we have gained from youth participation, where do you think youth participation could be improved? Mia, I know that you have strong thoughts on education and the Leaving Cert. Do you think there is a role for young people to play in decision making there?
Yes. The Leaving Cert does not measure your academic abilities, nor your intellect. It measures your ability to memorise things. It puts students on a race against the clock to try and learn an unrealistic amount of information. It often impacts the mental health and well-being of students, with many losing sleep, dropping out of sports, and feeling overwhelmed with stress and worry, in turn making it harder and harder for young people to participate in extracurricular activities outside of school. A study conducted by StudyTricks found that 71% of students doing the Leaving Cert suffer from anxiety, while 47% experience weight gain and 35% struggle with insomnia. How, as a society, do we let one set of exams define the future of our young people? In 2026, we are still using a grade system that was established in the 1990s to decide who gets to go to college and who doesn't. I firmly believe that the Leaving Cert acts as a barrier to third-level education and needs such a larger scale of change than we are currently seeing. Not to mention the Leaving Cert reform. As a student, I am genuinely concerned about the quality of education I will get in my Leaving Cert due to the sheer lack of information we have. The idea that adding projects that are worth 40% of our overall grade to a curriculum that teachers are already struggling to finish is insane. Maybe if we would take on some of the work in the curriculum to make space for it, yes, but as it stands, we are setting our students up for failure. As young people, we need a seat at the table because we are simply not involved enough in the decision making when it comes to our own education. We have the opportunity to change the Leaving Cert in a way that will last for years to come. Students are stressed, tired, and frustrated with the lack of communication from the Department of Education. Students are being left behind because they don't have enough communication from the department about the reform. There could be amazing work going on with the Department of Education, but we know nothing about it. I'll ask my teachers, what are we doing for the business course next year? What are we doing for the science course next year? But they don't know because that information has not been communicated to them. It is unfair to make us as young people sit back and hope for the best. We deserve better communication.
Mia, does anyone else have experience of where youth participation goes wrong?
there is one point I'd like to make, and I think that young people can tell the difference between being listened to and when we're being used as evidence that a consultation had happened. And I think young people, when they're invited after the decision's already made and there's no feedback afterwards, I almost question what's the point. Because then it becomes participation when it's a tick in the box exercise, or young people present but they're not being influential. I think the real question that really needs to be addressed is, even to you, what changed because we had young people contribute? And even a stronger point might be that many organisations are becoming very good at consultation, but I think the biggest challenge now is creating influence, because participation shouldn't end when the consultation ends. I think that's how we stop from going wrong with participation.
Thank you, Cian. Sam, do you have any thoughts on this?
Thanks, Griva. So I have two topics to discuss here, and the first one is kind of building on top of what Cian was saying, looking at tokenism. So from my personal experience, there would be three different representations of tokenism. You'd have appearance, that would be inviting a group of young people to an event, to a council, having them there for 25 minutes, taking a picture, and leaving. There would be, as Cian mentioned, ticking the box, and then an organisation giving young people a special role, but no work with it. I don't think this should happen, because if a young person attends an event and it turns out to be tokenistic, it's their first event that they get invited to, that will discourage them from attending future events like this, because they just presume it'll be the same, even if it has the opportunity to be entirely different. There's a few very simple things we can do to work around this. Number one being inviting them to the whole event. If there's a 3-hour-long meeting, ask if they want to attend it. If it's a 3-hour-long meeting and they can only attend the first hour because the last 2 hours have really sensitive information in it, make sure that they know what they're signing up for before they agree to come, so they can decide whether they want to do that themselves. And then on the special role within organisations, it's very simple. Don't just give them a fancy title, give them work. That's all from that. Thank you, Quiva. Oh, that is not all from that. I'm so sorry. That's all from the first topic. So the next topic is on the same page of youth attending events. It's recording the outcomes of those events. This is specifically looking at the adults on councils, committees, boards, etc. that invite young people to an event. And for this example, we're going to say a group of young people have been invited to their local council to represent their town in a decision of changing a street from a two-way system to a one-way system. The young people attend, give their opinion, and leave. A good example of the recording would be getting sent an email or something afterwards from the council saying, "Thank you so much for attending the meeting to discuss changing whatever street from a two-way system to a one-way system. We've decided to change it after hearing your input amongst the discussions, and we look forward to meeting with you again." A bad example would be finding out the outcome above with the general public and no advance notice. That's all I have to say on that. Thank you very much. Quiva, I'll pass back to you.
Thank you, Sam. Back to you, Mia.
I'm sure that we've all heard about Australia in the media lately, but if you haven't, they've put a full ban over social media for anybody under the age of 16 years old. There's been talk that Ireland will follow on this or do so on a trial basis. I believe that social media has become a really dangerous thing nowadays. It can be so hard to monitor and keep track of, especially for children who are so impressionable. But there are two sides to social media, as it also has so many benefits. Young people use social media as a basis for political movements, such as the purple profile pictures to help raise awareness of the femicide in South Africa, or the blue profile pictures to help raise awareness of what's going on in Afghanistan. Not only this, but it's become such a big part of our daily lives, with many using it to help source information. Whether that be a recipe or a makeup tutorial, it has become a thing that we use daily. Ultimately, I believe taking away from people under the age of 16 years old is a good idea, but needs to be foolproof. It needs to be secured with ID or passport verification, because if one person has it and the other doesn't, it will leave people feeling left out and excluded. I also feel that we should see how this falls out for Australia long term before we implement it over here. We should wait at least 6 months to a year so we can understand the problems and issues, so we can ultimately prevent them if we were to put in our own ban. Does anybody else have any thoughts?
I'd like to just mention that I do think this is a complex issue, and that there's genuine concerns around online safety, cyberbullying, harmful content, mental health, and the thing I don't think is spoken enough about is the excessive screen time that we have. And coming to this conference here yesterday morning, I had to get the dart from Dublin into the city, and it was during rush hour and the train was full. And what I noticed was I was standing and I was looking around and I saw the amount of people that were young, old, young and old, young and old, and in the middle. And if they're scrolling, if they're watching videos, or if they're listening to music. And I think when I was thinking about this on the train down to Galway, I thought is this becoming more of a wider societal issue rather than just simply a youth issue? Yeah. I think sometimes, I know I would have actually liked to have grown up in a society where I didn't have to be on Instagram and on Snapchat and having the constant notifications on my phone. And like many young people, I can recognise that how addictive these platforms can be. But the question that I would like to ask when it comes to banning social media 16 is, what exactly are we trying to ban? Is it social media we're trying to ban? Is it the algorithms? Is it doom scrolling? Is it the dopamine reward cycle we receive? Or is it the harmful content we also see? Because if adults are struggling with these platforms, we need to think carefully about their impact on younger people. So if an entire train carriage full of adults are struggling to disconnect, is it really just a youth issue? And the question isn't whether young people should have access to digital spaces. I think the question is whether we are preparing them to participate safely and responsibly within them.
Thank you, Cian. So, do you have any thoughts?
Thanks, Mia. So I do think this should be strongly considered. And as I said earlier, I've never been on social media, but I have observed from my friends and my family the effect it can have on mental health and keeping you trapped in a digital world. I do know when I was younger, if I wanted to communicate with a friend, I had to go outside, knock on the door and ask if they wanted to come out. Social media is an amazing tool for communicating between friends and family, but I do believe that in the interest of youth mental health, it should be banned. But like Mia said, it has to be concrete. You can't have a certain group of friends having it and a certain group not, for fairness and equality. Thank you, Mia.
Caoimhe, I know that you were recently involved in a youth forum in relation to this. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So I was a member of the Youth Forum on Online Safety, which was in preparation for the EU presidency, which was run by the Department of Culture, Communication and Sports, and was supported by the Ombudsman for Children and other organisations. We discussed different aspects of social media. From reflecting on what was said at the meeting, it was clear to see how social media has a significant part to youth participation in decision making, as it gives youth information, and by revoking the right to information, it goes against Article 17 of the UN Convention Rights of the Child. As it states, we must ensure that the child has access to information and material from a diversity of national and international sources, which they may have lost if we revoke access to social media. We also talked about how social media can be used to organise events for youth and by youth. The example that was given was about the youth of Nepal who rose up against their government after they tried to ban social media, as the people believed it was a way of censoring them from speaking up against corruption. Sorry, I've lost my place. This showed how young people are capable of taking extreme measures to achieve their goals. However, if we were to ban social media, I strongly doubt the 12-year-olds of Dublin are going to go on a riot and storm Dáil Éireann.
So that brings us to participation in a political life. Cian, do you have any thoughts on the vote at 16?
So, there's some strong arguments on both sides for this. An argument in favour would be that we are young people that are affected by the decisions that the government make. Many young people get a job, part-time job at 16, and they pay tax. It may not be much, but they're still contributing. Politics in society is growing in Leavenscert, and if you were to have the vote at 16, it would be greater youth participation in democracy. However, my concern is something that happened about a week ago. I was out with one of my best friends, and he had turned around to me, and whatever conversation we were having, he'd mentioned, sure, isn't Leo Varadkar still Taoiseach? And when he said it to me, I was like, why? I couldn't believe what he said, but I said, why do you think he's still Taoiseach? And he said, but sure, he was the man that was on the television during COVID, on the telly. So I didn't want to criticise him, I didn't want to say anything bad, but it was a reflection that I noticed of how small and how little proper political education many of us as young people receive. So I think, as well, social media is a massive concern when it comes to the vote at 16. And I think a lot of young people now get political information through short clips online. Now, a lot of these clips often lack context. They have a focus on arguments. They have a focus on personalities. And they don't explain the policies. So politics then becomes more of a popularity contest rather than an informed decision. And young people may support someone because they went viral rather than understanding their policies. I mean, we all remember Catherine Connolly during the presidential election doing kicky-uppies, and that went viral. And my question is, have we properly prepared 16-year-olds to participate in democracy? And if we want the vote at 16, I think we need to have more stronger civic and political education from the beginning of secondary school and not just in Leavenscert. I think young people need to understand from a young age, if it's vote at 16, that how the government works, how political parties stand for, and how decisions affect people's lives, and how to critically analyse information online. Because strong democracies don't create voters. They create informed voters. Which means the question isn't simply whether 16-year-olds should vote. The question is whether we've properly prepared 16-year-olds to participate in democracy.
I feel that as young people, we are more politically informed than ever before. Not only do we have more information about politics from the internet, but we also have politics and society class in school. I am a firm believer in the want to learn something. A 16-year-old and a 4-year-old person both have the same access to political information online, and they can both draw their own opinion from that information. That is, of course, if they choose to access it. And yes, many 16-year-olds will choose not to vote. I asked a friend of mine if she could have voted in the presidential election, who would she vote for? And she said, sure, I'd vote for Simon Harris because he's just up the road. But many adults also choose not to vote. In fact, 213,738 people spoiled their vote in the last presidential election, the equivalent to 13% of all voters. I do not agree with the argument that a 16-year-old isn't mature enough to vote when indeed they're mature enough to work, drive a tractor, pay tax, and leave school. How can we allow a 16-year-old to have a job and pay tax that funds our government, and then give them less of a say in how that government is run, even though they are contributing in the same manner? Decisions are being made about education on our behalf. Decisions about our future are being made without our input. As young people, we are the most impacted by the education system, and yet we are given such little say in it. Rest assured that by lowering the voting age, we are not taking a huge risk. It's been done before. Scotland lowered their voting age to 16, with 75% of 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds going on to vote. Along with this, Austria and 16 states of Germany have lowered their voting age to 16, and we have yet to see any negative repercussions of that. Not allowing young people to vote where we have ample evidence they are capable is a choice to silence the next generation. I would hope that Ireland will not make that choice. Now back to you, Quiva.
So obviously there is a value to youth participation, otherwise we wouldn't be here today expressing our opinions. What approach to youth participation do you think works? Cian, do you have some thoughts on this?
Yes, so look, meaningful participation, again, is something I'm passionate about. And I think from the organisations that I've been part of, we were involved from the start. I point this, I'm give a heads to the National Executive. We were always involved from the very beginning when it comes to meaningful participation, and we're always brought out to the end. And what I learned from that was almost a golden rule when it comes to meaningful participation. It was to involve young people from the early start. Secondly, was to build trust with that young person, to share the responsibility, to give feedback, and then to show the impact. It was actually something the Minister had mentioned in the opening this morning. I think what I've noticed is that young people rise to the level of responsibility that they've been trusted with. And again, something I had seen in the National Executive, something I've seen with the Foróige Reference Panel, the National Council as well, and even with the public speaking opportunities like us today. So confidence often comes after responsibility and not before it. But as well as that too, young people don't expect every idea to be accepted. But what we do expect is to have every idea to be taken seriously. Yeah.
Thank you, Cian. And speaking of approaches to youth participation, I mean, it's only fitting that we discuss the Lundy model. Cuiva, I believe you have some thoughts on this.
Yes. So, youth participation can be measured in countless ways, such as Hart's ladder of participation, which consists of a hierarchical system, or Lundy's model of participation, which was just talked about. When an organisation decides they want to have young people involved in decision making, I think using Lundy's model is the best way to plan out how involved young people are, and it also makes it easy to reflect on how the youth were involved. However, I think Hart's ladder can be more effective for reflecting the involvement of young people at the end of the project, as it displays the next goals on how to further involve young people and how we should strive to reach the top of the ladder, which consists of youth and adult initiated shared decisions and youth initiated and directed projects, if that's what the young people want. However, I do think Lundy's model gives a better structure plan on how to achieve involvement with young people. It is undeniable, though, that they both work hand in hand, and to achieve the purest form of youth participation, we should strive to use a combination of both. So, how can we involve a wider audience when it comes to youth participation?
When it comes to reaching a wider audience, it is all about how much people know about different opportunities. If we don't know how to have our voices heard and make changes, then we're not going to. Going back to my earlier point about the Leaving Cert, we need to be more involved. But how? Could we be running forums through schools? Could we assemble a committee of young people to design a new Leaving Cert, a more realistic one? But the big thing is making sure that young people are able to access this opportunity, and that a diverse range of young people are doing this, so that this Leaving Cert will be accessible to everyone and is going to measure what young people want. Yeah.
Thanks, Mia. Cian, do you have any thoughts?
The question that would be good to ask is, who isn't in the room today? And that's because participation often reaches confident young people, existing leaders, and young people that are already engaged. But it's almost vital and crucial that we hear from people that are in deaf schools or young carers, young people with disabilities. This is young people that are under significant school pressure, and those young people with low confidence. I think the most engaged young people are not the only young people with valued perspectives. So if young people can't come to the table, sometimes the table needs to move closer to them.
Okay. Well, we have thoroughly enjoyed our time here today. This will be our last question of the session that will hopefully leave you with something to think about. Before we open up the floor to questions, what are one or two actions that you think need to be taken to try and empower more young people? For me, I think that young people need to have access to so much information so we can make better and more informed decisions. Today, young people are more capable than they would have been, say, 20 or 30 years ago, as we've been forced to mature so much faster due to social expectations, social media, and school. We are more versed in the politics of the world today and can be trusted. We are capable, so let us participate to the full extent of our capabilities. Sam, how about you?
Thanks, Mia. So, if there was one thing I could choose for people to remember, it's three simple words. We are here. Are here, not our. Young people are here. We want to be given these opportunities. We may decline them, but that's our choice. That is how I will leave it. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mia.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. I think you have some thoughts about this scheme.
I think not only are we here, but I think the next step is from moving from consultation to partnership. I think the questions that I would almost put to use are, how do we make youth influence normal rather than exceptional? How do we involve young people before decisions are made? And how do we genuinely share power with them? Because young people do not need adults to give us a voice, because we already have voices. I think the challenge is whether our systems that we have are prepared to trust those voices with a genuine influence. So I think the future of youth participation is not consultation alone, it is partnership. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Cian. And finally, Quiva, what change do you think are needed?
Well, if we want to give more power to young people in decision making, we need to make opportunities accessible for them. And the first steps to making opportunities accessible to the youth is taking into account Lundy's model of participation and Hart's ladder of participation, which structures and organises how involved young people are in decision making, and to strive to reach the top of the ladder, and to aim for youth and adult initiated or shared decisions and youth initiated and directed projects, while also ensuring that is what the youth want. Thank you, Mia.
We are now going to open the floor to questions.